Okay, kids, we are back, and with us today is Jeff Sabella. Hi, Jeff. How you doing?
Good. How are you, Coach?
Doing great. We're talking to Cypress Woods Elementary School kids here this summer, and so Jeff has a really interesting story, kids. I first knew Jeff when he was a high school aged kid, and he was in Tampa playing for Jesuit High School, which was one of our main rivals. I was coaching Clearwater Central Catholic High School. It was one of my first years coaching there, and I was really big into scouting reports then. And so I tried to learn everything I could about Jesuit, and that's when I first came to know Jeff because he was a key player on the team. I studied him, watched him, and then lost track of him for a long time. Met up with him again and asked him to become a coach with us at Carrollwood Day School, which he did, and he helped a lot of kids. But so anyway, but what I want to do is I want to ask Jeff. I want to ask you to tell the kids about yourself. Tell us your story.
All right. Hey, guys. How you doing? This is definitely an honor to do this. As Coach said, I played high school soccer. At first, I grew up in Clearwater, Florida. Born and raised Clearwater, long time ago, and went to same school from basically first grade all the way through eighth grade. Thing I remember, I'll back up even a little bit, but the kind of kid I was, I know when I was 5 and 6, the kind of kid I was, and then as my memory started to grow, I kind of realized, yeah, that's exactly right. But the stories I hear, especially from my mom, she tells me that pretty much when I was in preschool and kindergarten, I was a kid that basically didn't want to talk to anybody. As far as I feared pretty much just even talking to people that I didn't know. Obviously, I was fine with my family, and if I had some friends, I was fine talking to them. But when I was in preschool, in fact, about 4 or 5 years old, I had a friend from my neighborhood. Her name was Nicole Passano, and she was my filter. Basically, the only way I could even talk to the teachers. The teachers would ask me a question, or they would try to talk to me, and I would basically talk through Nicole to the teachers. So to say I was shy is an understatement. I was extremely shy, and I didn't even like talking to anybody. And as I grew up, when I went through elementary school, still very shy, very shy. It wasn't probably until I got to high school that maybe I started to come out of my shell a little bit. So that's kind of a little background on who I was. I was a kid that really didn't like to talk to anybody. I was almost, afraid to do things, afraid to talk about things. My only outlet maybe was soccer, because I did play soccer when I was started about when I was 6, and so I did love playing soccer, and I would talk to coaches and stuff, but I really didn't have that kind of outgoing personality when I was in school. As Coach said, I went to a high school in Tampa, Jesuit High School. I traveled about 35 minutes every day across the bridge from Clearwater to go. Because I thought it was a good opportunity. I had cousins that went there, and I enjoyed it. And I also heard that they had a pretty good soccer team, and I loved it. It was great. I played 4 years at Jesuit High School in soccer. It was the only intercollegiate sport, or the only sport I played in high school. And then I graduated from Jesuit, and I went to the United States Air Force Academy, which is in Colorado, and it's basically a military development school. It's a college, full up accredited university. So we had university classes, and at the same time we also had military training. From there, I did 4 years there, and I graduated in 1993, and then I entered active duty in the Air Force. I also, at that point, is when I went to pilot training. And, let me back up. The main reason I went to the Air Force Academy, well, there were two. One reason was because in 1986, a movie came out that actually some of you guys might be familiar with, because there's a sequel coming out this year. It was called Top Gun, and it was a movie that I was actually just captivated by. That was between my freshman and sophomore year in high school. And because of that movie is basically what made me pursue the idea of becoming a pilot, an aviator. So I did that, and also the Air Force Academy was paid for. And at the time, my family was going through some medical problems, my dad, and so we needed all the help we can get. I still wanted to go to college, but we really couldn't afford it. So the Air Force Academy kind of seemed like it was another way of getting to go to school without my family having to pay for it. So it was kind of a no-brainer. Went there, no military background. My dad served maybe in the reserves, but he never was activated back in the in the 60s, maybe 50s. But had no military training, no military background. I didn't really even know what the military was about. All I know is I wanted to be a pilot, and the Air Force Academy kind of offered that opportunity, possibly. So I went there 4 years. Later, graduated, went to pilot training, which is a year-long program, pretty intense program. They put you through a pretty high-pressure situation. And, because if you have an emergency while you're in the air and you have a problem, you kind of have to be able to handle it. Under pressure, you have to be able to kind of react with calmness. So a year long, and I went to pilot training, got out of that, and then I started my career in the Air Force flying airplanes. Did 20 years in the military in the Air Force, and just retired about 7 years ago, 2013. So I retired from the Air Force, completely finished, and then I started a career in civilian aviation, and that's what I do now. So I'm a pilot for JetBlue Airlines. Been there for about 5 years, and I love it. It's not the same kind of challenge as the military was, obviously, but it's a different kind of challenge. And it pays the bills, and I'm happy to have a job currently. So that's kind of my background. That's my story in a nutshell. I have a family as well. I have a wife. I have 3 girls. One of them is in elementary. Actually, she's in 5th grade. She's going into 6th grade next year. She's my youngest. I have a soon-to-be senior in high school, and I have a soon-to-be freshman in high school. So they're kind of all spaced out about 3 years apart, and definitely kind of my focus in life. My wife and my kids. Sorry about that, but anyway, it's what I do, and I love it. My family's great. They support me in everything I've done. And that's kind of my story. Anything else, Jim, that you can think about?
That's a great story, Jeff. I love it. I'm just captivated by it. And I was thinking of a few questions during it. So one of the things I think is fascinating, and I'm going to just mention to the kids is, kids, Jeff was a really good soccer player, like really good. And when he went to the Air Force Academy, he did play college soccer and did really well there. But in his story, that detail didn't come out. That wasn't part of the story he told. And to me, Jeff, that tells me what I already know about you, which is that you don't really like to bring the attention back on yourself so much, or that you like to put things in perspective as to what's important. I think it's fascinating. I mean, I think we could be talking to other people who had a college athletic career, NCAA Division I, and had success, and we would be hearing a lot about that, even all these years later. Why did you leave that part out? I'm just curious about that.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I obviously Coach Dan, believe it or not, that was part of the reason I got into the Air Force Academy was the fact that I did play soccer, and it helped me because as an Air Force Academy recruit, you still have to have the grades to get in to the Air Force Academy. But if you're considered a recruit, you also, you kind of are put in a separate pile. And they can go, well, as long as he's meet the minimums and everything else is good, we'll still, he's a recruit for football, basketball, baseball, soccer, whatever. So that helped me that I was considered a recruit. Now they don't have any, obviously, like I said, the Air Force Academy doesn't charge to go there. So it's not like you're getting a special academic scholarship or athletic scholarship to go there, but they consider you a recruit. So you're being a recruited athlete. But I went there. And I guess because, okay, so, growing up playing soccer my whole life, I was on some competitive teams, obviously, and we in high school we won a state championship. So the high school team was very good. But I never really. I don't know if it's. I basically kind of pushed that down a little bit because I never really. Not that I'm not proud of that, my soccer and my ability to play, but I kind of wish that I had taken that a little bit further and taken it a little bit more, maybe putting more effort into it, I guess is what I'm saying. Because I didn't have, I had some really good coaches, but I certainly didn't have the kind of coach that I know Coach Harte to be, and I know he won't say that, but he's the kind of coach that he develops players, and he tries to get the maximum effort out of players. And I never really felt that I did that. So when I went to the academy, I thought I was, I spent about 12 years of my life playing soccer, but kind of coasting and not really pushing myself. So I was lucky to be a recruit. I went there and I played my first year. Of course, you go through tryouts your first year as a freshman. And the academy is a Division I, like you said, it's a Division I school, so they have a good team. But we were never really at the upper echelons of Division I. We were always just kind of, every once in a while we beat a good team, but for the most part, if we played a school, a Duke or an Indiana or somebody like that, there would be no chance. We would be lucky to, get away with, a goal or something. So when I first went there, that was kind of the way that the academy was, the academy soccer team. But I basically then tried out, and I didn't make the varsity. I didn't make the varsity soccer team at my freshman year. So I kind of was, that was my first really shock to the system, because that was kind of the first time I'd ever really realized that maybe I'm not as good. This team isn't even the top Division I team in the country or anything. So, and I can't even make the varsity as a freshman like I did in high school. I thought, well, I'll do the same thing in college. Well, it didn't work that way. So I played JV. I still love the camaraderie. I love the guys. In fact, my best friends from college are guys I played soccer with at the academy. But it was a shock. It was a shock, and I was like, well, what am I? I can't believe I'm not good enough to make this Division I mediocre school. But then at the end of the year, they pulled me. They pull a few JV players up to the varsity for once the JV season ends, and I got pulled up. I even got to play in a varsity soccer game my freshman year down in Miami. It was against Florida International University at the time. I remember. It was a big thrill. Sophomore year came, and I expected, I was like, well, I was on varsity the last part of freshman year. Again, I'll be on the varsity, right? We had to try out, and it came down to, they had some good freshmen come in the year. I was a sophomore, and so I didn't even think about it. I just assumed that, since we had some graduating seniors, I'd be on the team, no problem. But it came down to a discussion between the coach and me that, I was really on the edge, and I might get another year at JV. And that was something I was kind of ashamed of, that, I was like, well, I can't believe I'm not, I'm still not good enough to be on the varsity soccer team as a sophomore. But he held me. They kept me on. As I progressed through, sophomore year went well. I got playing time. I didn't start most of the games, I don't think. Junior year, it was another experience where I thought that, this is going to be, I'll definitely be junior and senior. I'll be on the varsity. We'll be competitive. And we were, but I was also kind of a utility player. And the same thing goes for my senior year. So, you think about it, and you go from a starting high school soccer player on a pretty good team, and then you go to college, and then you realize that, if you didn't work hard, you didn't put in effort, that it's not guaranteed. You're not going to play every game. I played a lot of the season, but I was considered a utility player. I started maybe half the games, maybe I didn't, but so I guess because of that, and the fact is that I don't look at my college career as a soccer career. It was more of a military career with a soccer diversion, and it was great. I wouldn't give it. I wouldn't trade it for anything. I mean, we got to travel to a lot of cool places, go play in a lot of different cities, and it was fun. I had, like I said, my friends from college are definitely my friends that I made on the soccer team. But maybe that's the reason that I was never I wasn't like a 4-year starter. I wasn't even a 3-year starter. In fact, I wasn't even a 1-year starter on the varsity soccer team. Now the team got better every year. In fact, my senior year, we did make the Division I playoffs. We lost in the first round to a team called SMU in Dallas. And then the year after I graduated, all those guys that were behind me a year, they got to the final 8 in the country. It was a very good team. The team got better and better as I was there. So it was harder and harder to make to be a starter and to make the team. But they got to the final 8, and I think they lost to South Carolina, but they beat Creighton, who was number 1 in the country at the time, which is an incredible experience for an academy soccer team to beat somebody like that. I don't even know what to compare it to. It's like somebody from the third division or the championship league in England beating a Premier League team. I don't know if anybody gets that reference. I guess, Coach, that's why I would say that my soccer career is not something I gloss over, but it's not something I think of as it was definitely a developmental time in my life, and I'm grateful for it. Thank God that I got to do it. But it certainly wasn't. I didn't see myself. I realized somewhere in college that I probably didn't have a career in professional soccer, and so that was my that was what I kind of resigned myself to.
Jeff, it's fascinating to hear you tell that whole story and how you are honest with yourself about your athletic sort of the arc of your athletic career, and as opposed to trying to revise history and make it seem like it was something that it wasn't. I think that's great. I think that's who you are. It's the person that I know a little bit, and I'm correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm guessing that if you had a do-over, you might have done a couple of things differently. And I don't know if that's true or not, but maybe not. But that's okay.
Yeah, I would say, having my eyes open to the experience of that. I say the word. I use the term coasting. I kind of did that a lot when I was in school, and if there's anything I would change about how I approached everything from soccer to my academics, I would say that I would definitely having 20 years of 30 years of perspective on it now, I realize that you only get out of something what you put into it. So I think that if you put in a lot of effort and you put in the time, and even if it's something you're just not that into, you give it at least a real fair shot. And just try to do the best you can. I mean, I realize not everybody has interest in the same things. Chemistry in school was never a strong suit, so I just was like, I just got to get through this class. Instead of taking the attitude of, let me learn more. Let me go to the teacher and talk. And let me find out some things that I didn't know. And maybe I would have gotten more interested. Maybe I would have become a doctor. Who knows? You just don't know what you're going to do until you put effort in. And unless you put the effort in, you're basically just kind of coasting, and you'll. I don't want to say you'll regret it, but you certainly won't look back on it with fondness and go, I'm sure glad I just kind of barely skated through that in my life.
No, that's fascinating, Jeff. And coasting, what a word! What an interesting word. So when we get back to school, kids, we are going to talk about that word coasting and what it means and what examples of coasting are in PE and in elementary school and things of that nature. Jeff, thank you for that. Thank you for sharing all that about your story with us. I think it's great. I think people learn from other people's stories as much as anything else, and I'm super grateful that you shared that with all of us. Jeff, I'm going to ask you now, you've already kind of talked about the kind of kid you were, that was cool. That was really cool. Do you remember PE when you were an elementary aged kid? And if so, what do you remember about it?
Um, Coach, I remember PE classes. I remember we had to go to classes. I remember that we did. We had to change out of our uniform into a PE uniform because that was what we did. I went to a school called St. Cecilia in Clearwater, and I remember changing in the uniform. And I remember thinking that I wish we wouldn't have to change in the uniform because what, I just got to change right back into the other uniform when I get done. And we didn't really do a whole. Generally in PE, I don't remember really doing a whole lot because nothing was organized. It was. I'm sure that maybe my PE teachers would tell me that's not true. It was, but I certainly don't remember having any kind of structure or organization to PE classes. I think I remember them, gathering us together, and then I remember again doing some balls to things, throwing some balls around, maybe doing some drills. But in general, I don't honestly have a very good recollection of my physical education classes in school when I was in elementary school. It was, it's unfortunate, but I don't really remember it that well.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's, and I'm just going to mention here to the kids, this is why we do a lot of the things we do. This is why we use the music. This is why we use the themes. This is why we have Focus on Achievement Night, because we want you guys 30 years from now, if somebody asks you that question, we want you guys to right away be able to say, it's not just the bricks, it's the mortar. Boy, I learned that back in elementary school. And we want you to be able to break out in those routines that you've learned and you'll never forget. It's like riding a bike. Oops, sorry about that. So let me just fix this up a little bit better here. I'm just trying to hold this thing. I'm doing this a different way today, Jeff. So Jeff, you've seen clips of our kids operating.
Yes.
What impression did that leave on you?
I was amazed. I loved it. I loved it because what it kind of reminded me of in my life. Definitely not my PE classes when I was a kid, but it reminded me of getting the academy my freshman year. Actually, what they call basic cadet summer, and before I was accepted into the cadet wing as a full blown fourth class cadet, which is like a freshman. You have to go through 6 weeks of training, and it's called basic training. And it's basically, it is a full military basic training course. And it reminded me, seeing all these kids just, I don't know, just out there in a organized fashion. Yeah, there's always disorganization in organization, but in an organized fashion, out there doing something as a group, as a cohesive unit. And to me, that just reminded me of basic training, because we all showed up there as high school graduates without a clue. We all looked different. We all dressed different. And that's good. But then there's something to be said for what can be done as a group and how you can get together and accomplish something. And I, just what I saw, it was like, I don't know, it had to be 100 and some kids at least. I don't know, but I think, you had basically a ton of kids in a group doing, working towards a common goal and they're having fun. They're enjoying it. And it reminded me of those times, like, when you take something that's, has no organization, no direction maybe, and then you give it direction and you give it some organization, put music to it. I mean, that's great. There was we had to learn how to march as in the military, even as the Air Force. We had to learn how to march, and we marching can be kind of boring, but it's also there's some very certain things to it that you have to basically do. Otherwise, you don't look good as a company or as a group marching. And without we do jogs too. We would do jogs as a group. So you have maybe 30 cadets or whatever in a small company doing a jog or a ruck march or something. And without music, it'd be kind of like, it's just a bunch of guys running in step. But then you would sing these things called jodies. We call them jodies, but basically these these songs that would help you keep the beat. And it was it turned something into kind of from a chore into something that was just a lot of fun, because the jodies would always be kind of whimsical and fun and kind of funny. And so that's kind of what reminded me of it. Seeing all those kids like as who came into your PE class, probably at least the first PE class, going like, I don't even know what to expect. I don't know what this is about. And then they're individuals who kind of come together as a unit and have fun to music and look good doing it. They have a great. I'm sorry about that extra noise there.
No, that's okay.
If you can still hear me.
Oh yeah, we can hear you good. We're good.
They look great. I thought. I mean, that just reminded me, and it brought back some really great memories of my time as a. I don't have a lot of great memories as a basic cadet because it's kind of tough, but it just reminded me that there's a goal. You start from one thing, and then it's not all just to go out and have a good time, which is great. That's part of it, but it's to there's an ultimate end and goal in sight, and I saw that, and I thought it was great because I've never seen PE classes like that in my life, and I thought, wow, that's great. I mean, giving these kids that direction or that sense of purpose. I mean, you have kids that are from every level. Obviously you have kids that are good dancers, kids that are not strong dancers, and but yet everybody looked the same. And these kids were having a ball, and I loved it. I think it was, it was. It warmed my heart, whatever that means. It warmed my heart. It was good. I enjoyed it.
That's beautiful, Jeff. Thank you so much. And kids, you have to understand the compliment that you just got from a 20-year Air Force veteran officer, that your performance brought him back to his military training. That is really a cool connection. I want to ask you about the word Jody. Where did that word come from? What could you tell? Because I will just tell you this. One thing we did, and the kids will remember this. We recorded a Marine Corps cadence once at one point, and in this Marine Corps cadence, they kind of told the whole history of the Marine Corps through the words in the cadence. It was about 3 minutes long. And we exercised to that cadence a couple of times, and the kids were highly motivated by that. I'm guessing a Jody might be a song with a story. What is a Jody?
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you had, to be honest, I'd have to look at maybe Google or something to tell me what. Maybe it'll tell me. But
what do you remember it as?
But I don't know where the origin came from, Jody. But it was it is exactly what you just said, Coach. It's a military cadence or something, but it's a sing-song cadence. It's not like a left, right. It's more of a like there'll be a I wish I could remember some of them, but like in the Air Force we had one C-130 roll down the strip, and then you would basically follow that on, and then you would each element of the company might say one thing to it, and then another element would say something else, and it would basically kind of all come together. C-130 rolling down the strip, airborne daddy going to take a little trip, and that was the one for the basic one, but it's when you're kind of working and you're jogging or you're marching, and instead of just keeping it just methodical left, that can be boring. So you have music, like you, as obviously Coach knows, you put music to something, and it just automatically becomes a lot more interesting, a lot more fun, and can still go towards the goal of what you're trying to get to, and so I don't know, Jody. I have to. I don't know why we called it that.
That's okay.
I never really actually thought about it, but I'm going to look it up. I don't know.
Well, do this, Jeff. If you do look it up, if you could send me a couple of links, because sometimes with these interviews, what we do is we create a playlist off the interview. So the playlist includes the interview and a couple of links to things that we talked about in the interview. So if we can find something there, we'll do it. If not, I'll just find a way to include words about that, and then with the kids, either in something that I talk to them about here on YouTube, or when we get back to school. But if you find anything out about that and send it, that'd be great. We'll share that.
Yeah, I will.
We'll
I'll
share
look
that
for
with
it.
the kids. That's so cool. Well, thank you so much for that stuff, Jeff. I agree with you. When big groups do something together, it's magical. It's something you can't explain unless you're there. All of our kids know that feeling because they know that feeling, like our fifth graders know that feeling of, it's a Wednesday morning and there's 120 kids out there and the sun's coming up over the trees and we're getting ready for PE class and the music starts. And everybody slips into that mind frame together. And we get warmed up and then we go on to our lesson and we go on about our business. It's hard to explain, but it's really cool. So anyways, Jeff, what I want to ask you now is, as far as PE, what you have kids that have come through school, you have kids in school right now. In fact, you have a daughter that's a fifth grader. What do you hope their PE classes are about, and what do you think PE should be about?
Well, I mean, be honest with you, Coach. Now that I've seen your classes, I never really had an idea what PE should be about until I saw that. I mean, because then I realized that that's what PE should be about is taking every single individual, as we all are. We're all very different people, different individuals, different skill levels, different dance levels, different rhythm, and being able to come together and do something that we're all proud of. And it's something that, even if it's something as simple as, being in unison, doing a dance, or, just something that we could say, oh, we got, I learned this new move that was pretty cool. And, I never had to do that before. I certainly was not a dancer when I was a kid. So just to be able to practice a new little fun dance move, that's really fun, and that's something that you will remember. So PE to me, obviously it's about getting kids involved, I think, in moving. I'm not a doctor, but I would, every single doctor you talk to says movement in life is critical. You could go through life watching TV, playing video games, and doing a whole lot of nothing, but even just going for a walk every day, you're moving. And it doesn't have to be that long, but you're moving. And I think getting kids into a routine, into the habit of getting up and moving, I think is awesome. And the way to do that is, I think, just what's going on there at Cypress Woods. That's great. I mean, my fifth grader this year, she's actually been homeschooled for the last 2.5, 3 years. So we didn't have a specific PE class, which I wish we would have. I wish we could have done something like this on Zoom. She could have taken your class, Coach. But she does. She goes through a performing arts academy and does a lot of different things. She takes hip hop. She takes lyrical, musical theater. She does a lot of that. So I mean, that counts as her PE because it's still required. And I think as it should be. A lot of I might, looking back on my PE days as a kid, I might think, well, I don't even know I had PE class because I played soccer. I was plenty active. Why did we even do PE class? Well, what you're doing gives it that answers the question. This is why we do PE class. It's not as just to get the kids out of the academic classroom to it is part of that. You got to get them out and moving, but it's not just a break for your math teacher to send the kids to PE. There's a reason here, and it's critical. As you get older, you realize that this is what Coach is doing there is. I think it's great. I mean, we talked about it, and I don't know if it's revolutionary, but it sure is. It sure is awesome. I don't know another word to put it, but that's my take on PE. It wouldn't have been my take probably before, because I would have said I don't even know why I did PE. I can't remember. it was fun to play dodgeball and things like that, I guess, or whatever, but nothing like that. Nothing until I went through my military training and realized that what the purpose is behind this group dynamic and what you can do together, and how important it is to be a team. I would have said, I don't know, we certainly didn't do that in PE, but not in these kind of classes that I've seen the clips of yours. It's definitely, if it's not the right thing, it's definitely on the right track. I think it's pretty damn close, pretty darn close. Sorry about that.
That's
you
okay.
Can edit that.
That's okay. So Jeff, thank you so much for all that. And one of the things you made me think of when you were talking was well, you made me think of a lot of things. Let me skip by those things, but let me just get to the next question. Let me ask you, Jeff, what if you are talking to, and sometimes I'll address the kids in this fashion. I'll say to them, future teachers of America, or future coaches of America, blah, blah, blah. Like, I'll address them as, future leaders of America. Here's what I think you need to know today. Or, so I'll address them in that manner. Future teachers, future coaches, future leaders. Thinking of them in that manner. And you've been around for a long time. Are there one or two important things that people that are leaders or teachers or coaches should be thinking about if that's a direction that they want to go into for a career or for something that they want to do?
Yeah, I would say future. I'll call it mentors, because teachers and coaches and that's what they are. I mean, these are people that kids look up to. So future mentors of America, leaders of America. I guess realize that it's critically important, I think, to really care about the people around you and care about not just how you develop as a person, but how you can help those around you to develop. Small ways or big ways, it doesn't matter. I think if you can just provide, you can be the example of what a leader should be, then just, live your life the way it should be lived, and realize that what you're doing, just everything you do is being looked at. Even if you don't see yourself as a leader, realize that just how you act and how you live your life and how you deal with situations is having an effect on people around you. People are looking at you, looking for someone to emulate, someone to copy, someone to look up to. So if you live your life the right way and you do the right things, you may not realize it, but you're having an effect on a lot of people who you don't even know they're watching you, maybe, but there are a lot of people that are watching you and trying to judge you, but don't be something other than what you are, obviously, but do the best you can. You're going to fail sometimes. We all fail. But I'd say if you just choose to do the right thing, what you know is the right thing, then you're going to be an automatic leader. People are going to automatically just gravitate towards you. And they're going to go, this is the kind of person I like. This is what I want to be. So, maybe that's just simple advice, but I think that, just being true to yourself and knowing that you are a leader, even if you don't feel like a leader, you are a leader. And sometimes, it's okay. It's good to follow. It's good to lead. Some of the best leaders that I've come across in my career were great followers. They were followers for years and years, and they took in everything they saw, and then gradually they became a great leader through that. And I think that it's a natural education process, learning process of what goes on. So I think do the best you can. Do the best you can, and I think you'll be a natural leader.
That's great stuff.
Yeah.
That's great stuff, Jeff. I'm sorry. Were you going to say something else? I didn't mean to cut you off.
No. That's about the best. I mean, is that kind of get to the
Oh,
question
that's
that you?
great. Well,
Yeah.
that's really, really good, really good. We talk about these things at school, and uh, one of the things, and maybe you can have an opinion on this, although you don't have to if you don't want to. uh, Being a leader doesn't necessarily have to do with your title. It just has to, it's kind of what you were saying. It has to do with how you act and how you live. Do you want to react to that?
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that. I we would do through different well, I guess you call it like different courses um, in in uh, in the military. We would take talking mainly about physical courses. We had these things during our summers at the academy. We had to do at least one course every summer. 1 year it was the obstacle course. 1 year it was the confidence course. 1 year, where you basically have a group of people who are all the same. They're all basic cadets, or they're all first class or second class or third class cadets. Nobody has a different title. They have a title, but they don't have a captain or colonel or leader, or you're the leader of this group. It's a small gaggle of people, maybe 7 or 8 people in a group that had to come together and try to solve a problem to get to a desired result. And there wasn't just one answer, but you could do it multiple ways. And I found out later as I administered these courses as an upper class cadet that there's not one answer. And you would actually, as an upper class cadet, you would learn from some of these ideas that these young kids, the young men and women had. That there's another way to do it. Your way, or the way you think is right, is not always the right way. It's not always the best way. It may be one way. But putting everybody in that situation, you could really see. It wasn't always the most vocal ones that were the leaders. It was the ones maybe that were the most thoughtful. They kind of thought about it. They sat back and they waited for others to put in their input, and then they came up with their solution. So being a leader doesn't mean you have the loudest voice or you have the title. It just means, I think, that you're gathering information and you're putting forth an opinion, and you're actually just doing something that other people will follow, will emulate. Because I tell my fifth grader this all the time. She's kind of a lot. She kind of thinks or subscribes to the idea that the loudest voice is the one that gets the attention. And I'm like, her name's Jacqueline. Jacqueline, you have to realize that there is strength sometimes in silence. There's a lot of strength in restraint. You don't have to always be the loudest voice. You don't have to be the person who's showing the most, trying to show the most initiative. I'm not saying that's bad. Show initiative. Be smart. You will be a leader automatically if you are just thoughtful and caring, and you do the right thing. And I don't think it has anything to do with your title.
Oh boy, Jeff, there's so much gold in this interview, and so thank you so much for spending time with us today. It's a friend and a person that we coached together with, and a person that I coached against when you were younger, and now to have this new chapter in our common adventure together. Looking forward to the next one. But thank you for today. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Coach. I appreciate that.